guys?
Who left this mess? Climate change? Who cares? Beans for lunch. My package arrived.
Wrong color?
Wrong color? Seriously? I'll have to return it. Bitter.
Everything we do has consequences, and sometimes it's really easy to forget about them. What you just saw is a sped-up version of what I think a typical person's daily breakfast routine might look like, maybe a bit exaggerated. When choosing what to eat, we can consider if it's ethically made, as in if it's fair trade, if it's made without animal cruelty, how it's made, what it's made from, how much packaging it uses, and how far it travels before it reaches our plate. In the video, we've tried to highlight at least 15 ways in which you could have practiced more Ahimsa. See if you can find them. If you look closely, you might be able to find more. Submit your answers in the form below for a chance to win. So, without further ado, welcome to the next lesson of Towards Ahimsa Virtual Camp. I'm Jain, and today I'm going to be talking a bit about sustainable living. I am definitely not the most qualified person to be giving this talk, and I'm probably going to make some mistakes, so please correct me in the comments below. I'm learning about the planet every day, and I hope you guys can learn something new along with me today too. Keeping our planet safe, clean, and at the temperature it's supposed to be can help us protect millions of people from poverty, help us reduce the likelihood of natural disasters such as cyclones, hurricanes, intense rainfall, flooding, heat strokes, and forest fires, and help us protect our ecosystems, as well as just create an overall nicer Earth for us to use and live in. Over the years, we have made a lot of progress. For instance, whales have made an amazing recovery, with a current population of around 25,000, after commercial hunting dropped their numbers to only 450 in the 1950s. Denmark has just passed the best climate change law around. Vermont made food scraps illegal, and with around 1,000 tons of food waste made per minute. That's pretty good. Pakistan has employed workers that have been laid off due to COVID-19 as tree planters, and a global partnership has promised to plant 25 million trees for Australia's bushfire recovery. But there are still lots of problems. The Earth's average temperature has risen by 1.18 degrees since the late 19th century. Greenland has lost an average of 279 billion tons of ice per year between 1993 and 2019, and sea levels have risen around 8 inches in the last century. In our oceans, an island of trash and plastic, twice the size of Texas, floats, leaching chemicals and microplastics into the sea. Scientists estimate that by 2050, there will be more trash in the ocean than fish. As Jains, we believe in the concept of parasparo pagraho jivanam, which means that all life is interconnected and interdependent. What we do today, whether we choose to act or not, is going to affect people, animals, and the earth for generations to come. Our goal as people is to reduce the amount of harm or Ahimsa we cause. But with all the consequences of our basic actions, to me it seems almost impossible sometimes. Like, the only way to cause no Ahimsa is to renounce all attachments and to go into meditation. Though this is a possible solution, and meditation is strongly encouraged in Jainism, this definitely isn't the style of life for everybody. It's impossible to live without causing Ahimsa, but we can reduce the amount of Ahimsa we cause. Today, I'm going to give you a few strategies you can work into your day-to-day life to reduce the amount of Ahimsa or harm you cause, specifically related to the trash crisis, so that we can move towards Ahimsa. The world produces enough plastic each year to create 50 pyramids of Giza. In the Great Pacific Garbage Patch alone, there are 1.8 trillion pieces of garbage. That's 10 times more than the number of stars in the Milky Way galaxy. The trash crisis and climate change aren't necessarily directly related, but they're both environmental crises that we've created. Environmental crises are hard to solve because they require two kinds of action. They require action from the outside, to fix what we've already broken. But they also require action from the inside, and a shift in our collective mindsets to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes again in the future. First, the inside. I think that the key to reducing our trash production and aiming for a life with as little waste as possible lies within the 5 R's. Recycle, repair, repurpose, reduce, and refuse. But there's also a sixth, invisible R, which should underlie everything that we do. It's respect for all living things and non-living objects too. I'll start with the least important R, recycling, and then I'll move on to more important ones that we should be doing more often. The last R is recycling. Recycling helps us protect the environment since it gives our waste a second life, which reduces our need to extract more resources. That said, it's really important that we only put things that can be recycled in the recycling. For example, this can be recycled, but this can't. As a good rule of thumb, glass, soft stretchy plastic, rigid plastic, metal, and paper can go in the recycling. But surprisingly, black plastic and compostable plastic can't. Black plastic can't go in the recycling because the conveyor belt that carries our recycling to the machine that sorts it is black, so any black plastic on it will actually be invisible. It's also important that our waste is prepared properly before we recycle it. For example, with this can, we first want to remove the label, then we have to rinse it out. Just give it a couple of minutes to dry it. You can push the lid in or just drop it in if it's separated, like mine, and squeeze the top. However, there's a whole other side to recycling, which actually makes it the least effective way to reduce our trash. If we throw dirty recyclables or non-recyclables into the recycling bin, they'll contaminate the whole thing. At a recycling facility, instead of sorting through this trash, they'll just throw out the whole batch, good recyclables included. Also, recycling facilities will only recycle if it's cost effective. And today, with all the consumer demand, it's usually easier just to extract new materials. Finally, recycling creates air pollution, toxic chemicals, and paper sludge, which is a byproduct of recycling paper. In these ways, recycling actually gives the illusion of helping when it's pretty ineffective. The second R is repair. Once your jeans have a hole in them, you don't have to throw them out. Get creative and fix them. That goes for a lot of things. With a little research, you'll find that repairing things is fun, easy, and lets you learn a new skill. This R is really important because it helps you avoid throwing things out. But it's also not at the top of the list since it doesn't address the root of the problem, which is buying things in the first place. The next R is reuse or repurpose. Repurposing is just as it sounds. Give something that's going to be thrown out another purpose. Whether it's turning it into some sort of art, something fun, or something useful. For example, here on my desk, most of my containers holding my stationery are repurposed. For example, this mason jar first held tomatoes, then taco spice, and now pencils. The fourth R is reduce. Reduce is all about questions. The big question is, how do we buy less stuff? We need to evaluate our choices. Do I really need this thing? Do I already own something like this, or can I make something else like it? Can I borrow this thing from someone? Can I get this thing secondhand? Is this item good quality? Will it last a long time, or will it break easily? How much of this item do I really need? And what's the carbon footprint or environmental impact of this item? I know it's not fun to have to stop buying things that you like, but reduce is where the R's start to get really important. Reducing what we buy is going to reduce what we throw out. That said, here are some other strategies you can consider. Consider buying products that are more sustainable, durable, reusable, or have less packaging and a smaller carbon footprint. These products might be more expensive up front, but in the long run, they're worth it.
There's lots of ways you can do this. For example, you could replace your disposable toothbrush with a bamboo one maybe. Or instead of wrapping your gifts in wrapping paper, wrap them in old newspaper. I'll link a guide below with more ideas. You can also consider waiting. When you're at the mall and you see something that you really want, just stop and wait. Wait for 3 days or maybe a week and then reconsider. See if you actually really want it, or maybe it was just the excitement. Also consider not having things perfect. Maybe it's okay to re-gift a present to a friend. Maybe it's okay not to have the newest model or gaming setup. Maybe it's okay if you read tattered library books instead of buying your own perfect copies. Maybe it's okay not to have a new outfit for each party. Start your own trend. This is a big part of changing the way we think. We really do need to shift our way of thinking, and that can start with you. The final R is refuse. I think the name pretty much explains this one. When someone's about to put 100 ketchup packets into your takeout bag, just politely say no. When someone's double bagging your stuff, just politely say no. When they're giving out free juice boxes and water bottles at an event, just politely say no. Junk mail is another thing that you can refuse. The average American household receives 848 pieces of junk mail per year, and 44% of that goes into landfills without even being read. Below, I've linked a guide that will help us reduce this number. This last R is the most important, and it looks pretty easy on paper, but it's actually a lot harder to get good at and put into practice. Remember, there's often a better way. This week, I encourage you to take note of everything that you throw away, either online or on paper is fine. Then, once the week is over, look over your results. See how you can apply the 5 R's in your daily life to reduce the amount of waste you're making. Maybe you find that there's a more sustainable alternative to something that you're throwing away a lot, or maybe you can recycle some of your waste. Maybe you notice that something that you've thrown away could have been repaired or repurposed, or maybe refuse can help you. Then, once a little time has passed, try this again and see how much progress you've made. Next, I'm going to briefly talk about tackling the problem from the outside. We have no doubt made a mess of our environment. These pictures you see are pictures I took from around my community. The first step is to not litter. Call someone out if you see them doing it. But now it's our responsibility to clean up the mess we've made. The idea of a trash pickup is fairly straightforward, but in these COVID-19 times, it's especially important to be careful. I'll briefly go over how to organize a safe trash cleanup, but the Government of Ontario has a great guide that I'll link below. First, you're going to need to choose your location. Trails, parks, common play areas, sidewalks, or yards like these are all great ideas. You will want to make sure that your location is safe. Next, you have to assemble your team. Who's coming with you on this trash pickup? Because it's really important to maintain social distancing, you'll either want to wear a mask or limit it to people in your household. Finally, materials. You'll obviously need something to hold the garbage you're collecting. Either bins like these, or bags. Next, you'll also need gloves. You can preferably reusable garden gloves. If you don't have garden gloves, you can also use an old plastic bag and you can put your hand inside to grab. Finally, shovels or forks attached to sticks like these can help you pick up garbage as well. During and after your pickup, the Government of Ontario has a form you can fill out telling them how much of everything you found. This will help them make more informed decisions on waste management in the future. This week, your challenge is to organize a trash pickup around your neighborhood, your community. Clean up your neighborhood before markets are empty. Submit your photos below for a chance to win. In Jainism, we're encouraged to apologize for our actions every day through Pratikaban. But it's also really important to make sure that we try not to make the same mistakes again in the future. Our actions speak louder than our words. I will easily admit that I don't follow the 5 R's properly, even though I should. Even my mother isn't perfect. We use single-use cutlery at all of our meals and give out extra and unnecessary pamphlets. The positive side, though, is that we can easily fix this with a collective shift in our mindset. We can digitize the pamphlets, only giving the hard copies to people who really need them, and we can all bring our own thalis. The 5 R's look pretty easy on paper, but they're actually a lot harder to put into practice. We need to change as a society, but that change can start with you. Supposedly, even if as little as 3.5% of a population is actively pushing for change, the movement will usually go through. So, rally your friends and stand up for a greener future for all of us. Change will take time and effort from everybody, but that change can start with you. Thank you.